Next question, please.
And my name is Howard Wooldridge, also known as Frosty's little brother. I'd like to first thank Congressman King, who took out his Saturday morning in June of ‘06 to address a handful of people at the Capitol in Des Moines. Thank you again for that, Congressman. Comment, as a lobbyist here in D.C., I get to go to all these types of affairs, and to put to rest any doubt, I went to the Congressional Black Caucus Conference in September. There was a breakout session by your colleague, Yvette Clarke, the Congresswoman. It was, the title was, Illegal Immigration, What's in It for Us? True story. And from the panel, the testimony, what's in it for us was what the gentleman was saying. You get increased congressional districts because the immigrants can't vote, but they count as part of the congressional districts. So you got overrepresentation of people who aren't here legally anyway. My question is basically about souring the milk politically at the local and state levels. Gentlemen like D.A. King in Georgia, the gentleman in ALIPAC in North Carolina, and I know Oklahoma, all these three states have basically soured the milk such they've made it uncomfortable for the immigrants to be there, less services, less benefits, et cetera. And then there's others who do it at the county levels. Where's the best source of information for us to go to get that type of information so that here we can go back to our homes and go to the legislatures, go to the county commissioners and say, what can we do at the local and state level? And last question for Mr. King. At the next year when you discuss and you make sausage for immigration reform, do you think it's possible that if the tsunami happens and you're going to lose, is there any chance you can stop anchor babies and chain migration? And I'm sure we all here know what that means, so thank you for your answers.
I will try part of that. I don't think that I'm going to be able to give you a very good complete answer on where we go to get the central information for how local jurisdictions have soured the milk, which is a new expression for me, but it is descriptive. And I certainly am an encourager of those people, those entities that have done that. There's a county in Virginia that has been very effective in doing that. And I'm trying to remember the county supervisor's name. Stewart, I believe, is his last name. Corey Stewart. And he's done a fantastic job of leading on that subject matter. I wanted to add into this also that there has been a concerted effort to try to convince the local law enforcement, anything from the state level on down to the local jurisdictions, that they don't have any jurisdiction or right in enforcing immigration law. That is completely false. And the idea that you need a 287G agreement in order to be able to enforce immigration law with local law enforcement, that's a plus when you have an administration that wants to work with it, but it's not a plus when you see what Janet Napolitano has done, because she's changed the rules in such a way that you can't even issue a press release when you pick up a busload of illegals unless the Department of Homeland Security will approve it or ICE approves it. So I wanted to reference a case when I say completely false, and I wrote this down as something I want to tell you. 2001, the 10th Circuit, in the case of Santana Garcia, ruled, and this is one of several precedents, but it's the most controlling precedent, as I understand this, ruled that there is an implicit authority for local law enforcement to enforce immigration law. And we should never back up from that. The governor of Iowa, and it was Tom Vilsack, sent an individual around, or apparently it was with the anointment of the governor, to go and talk to police departments and tell them, don't enforce immigration law because you don't have jurisdiction. That was completely false. And the anchor babies, part of this, I think we do have a chance at it. I think this political center has turned. It's already shifted in America. It catches up with the election in November. I think we have a reasonable chance to win back a majority. If that's the case, by statute, we can end the anchor baby component of this, because I do not believe, unlike the Constitution says count the people for the census, I believe that we're going to need a constitutional amendment to fix that problem. And Republicans were asleep at the switch when we had the opportunity to get that done. But anchor babies are a different story. As I read the Constitution, we can pass a statute that will just deny conferring the natural-born citizenship on the children of illegals that are here, and I'm willing to, it would be litigated in court. But I think we can sustain it. It's where we start. Chain migration, I'll just finish to this, that I'm involved in drafting legislation now that will dramatically reduce the chain migration, and I think we need to do that and at least tighten that down to the nuclear family if we can't get any tighter than that. Thanks.
If I could just say one word of optimism, which is not my normal, I'm not an optimistic guy at all, but when Amnesty came forward in 2006 and 2007, it was a done deal. Okay, I've worked in the city since 1980. You know, all the vested interests, they wrote this thing in a closed room. It was absolutely, I mean, it was greased. Okay, you got the president, you got Republicans, everything. This was to go, and it really, there really were only about 3 or 4 organizations in Washington that were there to stop that. Not more than 10 people really working this thing. But what we had for the first time was an ability to reach the American public through alternative media. And if you read the mainstream press during those 2-year periods, every story they wrote was just a lie or nonsensical, okay? I got 100 calls from them, and they all had the same story, you know, oh, this is about shifting from low-skilled to high-skilled immigrants. And I said, no, it doesn't. The bill is not about that at all. If you read the bill, it doesn't. You're talking about high-skilled waitresses, okay? and there are these other things in the bill, like how much does it cost to give amnesty? Outside the 10-year budget window, or in the first case, how many legal immigrants does this bill let in? And the mainstream media would never touch those things, okay, because they're completely controlled. But we were able to get the information out, okay? Before those 2 bills, I did 150 radio interviews in the month before that, and a lot of other people did the same thing, you know, and I would be reading these technical things over radio, far more complicated than anything I would ever say to a print reporter, because they're just not, you know, they're going to handle that. My goodness, you know, I just want a quote from you, you know, don't tell me some facts, my goodness. But we got information to the American people, and we stopped that thing, and they were astonished. They were astonished. And that vote, it was going to be a 60-vote majority, and they read the tea leaves, and they all turned and voted against that. And we can continue to do that because their ability to lie to the American public, which is at the core of left-wing power, is now beginning to fracture, and we just have to continue to build on that. But it doesn't take that many people if we can just get the truth out to Americans.